My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and said we only invited special people. After 3 years of paying their bills, I was not special. Those were the words that shattered me and started everything you are about to hear. My name is Evelyn Hart. I am 72 years old, a widow, and for most of my life I worked as a bookkeeper. Numbers were my trade, but love was my investment. I believed that helping my only son Tyler and his wife Madison was the same as building a family. For 3 years I paid their rent, bought their furniture, stocked their refrigerator, and even covered medical emergencies. More than $33,000 flowed from my accounts to theirs. I thought it was love. To them it was just withdrawals. But when the most important day of my son's life arrived, I was not even on the guest list. I stood in my own living room holding a dress I had chosen for his wedding and realized that money had never been enough to make me part of their circle. That betrayal was the spark. What followed was a battle in banks and living rooms, and eventually in a courtroom where my dignity itself was put on trial. This is my story of boundaries, betrayal, and finally freedom. It started with a phone call. I dialed my son Tyler, eager to ask when the wedding ceremony would be. Before he could answer, Madison leaned close to the phone with a smile that felt colder than ice. She said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those words froze me where I stood. Special people. I had believed that after years of sacrifices, I would at least be worthy of a chair at my son's table. For 3 years I had kept their roof over their heads, covered their bills, and skipped meals so they could eat well. Yet in their eyes I was not special. Later that evening I saw the photographs on social media. Madison in a bright white dress. The same dress partly financed by the $800 I had given her only a month before. Her parents stood proudly beside them. Her siblings raised champagne glasses, everyone smiling in celebration. Everyone except me. The pale pink dress I had bought for the occasion still hung untouched in my closet, with the matching shoes resting beneath it. Even the envelope with $1,000 I had set aside as a wedding gift remained hidden in my desk drawer, never to be offered. I did not cry that night. Instead, I sat in silence staring at the dress, realizing the depth of the exclusion. My love had been purchased, but my presence had been denied. In the days after the wedding, I could not stop replaying the years of sacrifices in my mind. Finally, I sat down with a notebook and began to calculate. If numbers were the only language they respected, then I would speak in numbers. Rent first. $500 every month, 36 months in a row. That was $18,000 gone. Groceries and supplies came next, roughly $200 a month to keep their shelves full. Another $7,200. Then there were the gifts. Birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas mornings when I wanted them to feel special. At least $3,000 in neatly wrapped boxes and gift cards. Madison's medical emergency, $800. The car loan I covered when they promised to repay, $2,500. The living room furniture I had purchased outright, $1,200. Even the air conditioner repair, $600. When I finished, the total stared back at me from the page. $33,400. $33,400 from my retirement savings, from my late husband's careful planning, from the life I was supposed to live in peace. I sat back in my chair with the notebook resting on my lap. For years I had told myself I was simply being a good mother. But looking at the numbers, I saw the truth. I had been financing 2 healthy adults while denying myself even the smallest luxuries. It felt like pouring water into a cracked vase. No matter how much I gave, it was never enough to fill. A week after the wedding, the phone rang. I recognized Madison's number. Her voice, once sharp and confident, now trembled with urgency. "Evelyn, the rent is overdue. The landlord is threatening to evict us. You forgot to make the transfer." I stayed silent for a long moment, letting her words hang in the air. How many times had I rushed to the bank on their behalf? How many times had I chosen beans and rice for myself so they could eat steak? Now, after being told I was not a special person, they called as if nothing had changed. "Madison," I said slowly, surprised by the steadiness of my own tone, "didn't I warn you that I only help special people?" The silence on the other end of the line was thick, as if she suddenly realized the foundation beneath her was crumbling. "Evelyn, I don't understand," she stammered. "We were always special to you. You're like a second mom to me." Lies, sweetly wrapped, but still lies. The same voice she used to ask for money for her dress, for the rings, for their so-called emergencies. For years I had trembled when they raised their voices, desperate to keep the peace. But not this time. This time it was Madison who trembled, and I who stood firm. The next morning I dressed with quiet resolve and walked to the bank. For 3 years those automatic transfers had left my account like clockwork. It felt almost ceremonial, as though the bank itself had been trained to value my son and his wife more than me. But today, the ritual would end. Mr. Donnelly, the branch manager, greeted me with his usual warmth. He had processed every one of those transactions, and had probably watched my savings shrink month by month. "Mrs. Hart," he said, "what can I do for you today?" "I want to cancel every automatic transfer to my son's account," I replied, "and I need stronger protections. No one else should ever have access to my money." His eyebrows lifted, but he asked no questions. Instead, he walked me through new passwords, additional security codes, and a clear freeze on outside access. When he handed me the paperwork, he paused. "Forgive me for saying this, but I hope you are not being pressured to make these changes." I smiled faintly. "On the contrary, Mr. Donnelly, I have finally stopped pressuring myself." As I left the bank, my phone buzzed endlessly in my purse. Tyler's name appeared again and again on the screen, then Madison's. I turned the phone off without answering. For the first time in years, the money in my account felt like it truly belonged to me. When I returned home that afternoon, 3 cars were already parked in front of my house. Tyler's, Madison's, and one I did not recognize. My pulse quickened. I opened the door and froze. There they were, sitting in my living room as though it belonged to them. Tyler slumped on the couch, Madison pacing like a cornered animal, and a man in a gray suit rifling through my documents spread across the dining table. "What is happening here?" I demanded. Madison rushed toward me with exaggerated relief. "Evelyn, thank goodness you are home. This is Mr. Fenton, an attorney we consulted about your situation." "My situation?" My voice was sharp. "I am perfectly fine." Tyler raised his eyes, and the look was one I had never seen in my son before, calculated, rehearsed. "Mom, we're worried. You've been acting strange, cutting us off financially without explanation, ignoring our calls. We think you might need help." The attorney stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Mrs. Hart, your children are concerned about your well-being. A temporary power of attorney would let them manage your finances until things stabilize." I gathered the papers off the table and held them close. "These are my private documents. You have no right to them." "Evelyn," Madison cooed, taking my hand, "it's just stress. At your age, confusion is normal." Her words struck like an insult. Confusion, that was their angle. They wanted me declared incompetent. I straightened my back. "I am not confused. I am clearer than I have been in years. And all 3 of you are going to leave my house right now." The lawyer opened his briefcase and slid a folder toward me. Without glancing inside, I dropped it straight into the trash can. "The only transition happening here is yours to the front door." The following day I walked into Ramirez Hardware, a small shop I had visited many times before to pick up supplies for Tyler and Madison's apartment. Gus Ramirez, the owner, greeted me with a grin. "Another emergency with your kids?" he asked casually. "Not this time," I answered firmly. "This time it's for me. I need the best locks you've got, and I want them changed today." His son Leo, who installed security systems, overheard us and stepped forward. "We can set up cameras too. You'll be able to see who comes near your door from your phone." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of relief. I was protecting myself instead of everyone else. As I walked home, a woman waved from the porch next door. She introduced herself as Nora Whitfield, a neighbor I had seen but never spoken to. She said, "Yesterday I heard raised voices in your house and I worried. Are you all right?" Her concern was genuine. I invited her in for coffee, and as we sat together, I told her the whole story. She listened carefully, then nodded. They all follow the same playbook. Make you feel indispensable, create constant emergencies, and when you resist, question your sanity. For the first time I laughed, not out of joy but recognition. I had found an ally. 2 days later I sat in the office of Patrick Green, an attorney recommended by a friend at church. He specialized in elder rights and had seen stories like mine far too often. After I finished explaining everything, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Mrs. Hart, what you've experienced is called elder financial abuse. It is more common than most people realize. The good news is you are not powerless, but we need to build a record. Documentation will be our strongest shield. He outlined a plan. First, I was to gather every receipt, every bank transfer, and every text or voicemail where Tyler or Madison asked for money. Second, we would file paperwork to block any further access to my accounts, and if necessary, request a restraining order should they attempt another uninvited visit. Third, he recommended scheduling a full medical exam and cognitive evaluation to prove my health was solid. If they want to claim incompetence, we will meet it head-on with evidence, he said firmly. I felt both frightened and relieved. For the first time, someone was giving me clear steps instead of guilt. That afternoon, I went home and began sorting papers into folders marked by year. I also allowed myself a small act of joy. I booked an appointment at the salon I had not visited in over a year. As the scissors trimmed away tired edges of my hair, I looked in the mirror and thought, for the first time in a long time, that I was beginning to recognize myself again. The knock at the door came early on a Tuesday morning. Through the new camera feed on my phone, I saw a well-dressed woman holding a folder. When I opened the door, she introduced herself politely. "Good morning, Mrs. Hart. My name is Ms. Carver. I am a social worker with the county. We received a report that you may be in a high-risk situation. I am here to conduct a wellness check." My stomach tightened. Tyler and Madison had escalated. It was no longer private pressure. They had brought the government to my door. "May I see your identification?" I asked. She showed me a badge that looked official. "May I come inside?" she continued. I allowed her in, but before she could begin, I said, "I want my attorney present for any questions." She hesitated. "This is not an interrogation, Mrs. Hart. If you have nothing to hide, there should be no problem." That phrase rang in my ears like a warning bell. I called Patrick Green. Within 20 minutes he was seated across from her. He calmly laid out the folders we had prepared, medical exams, financial records, and a complete timeline of my choices. "What you see here," he explained, "is not decline but clarity." Ms. Carver reviewed the documents, then closed her folder. "Miss Hart, I see no indication that you are at risk or incompetent. I will be closing this case." When she left, I felt a weight lift. They had tried to paint me as unstable, but evidence had spoken louder than accusation. Just when I thought the storm had passed, Patrick called me into his office with grim news. Tyler and Madison had filed a formal petition in family court. They were asking a judge to declare me mentally incompetent and to assign Tyler as my legal guardian. In plain words, they wanted full control of my life and finances. "They claim erratic behavior," Patrick explained, sliding the papers toward me. "They have 3 witnesses: Madison herself, your neighbor Mr. Connors, and your pharmacist, Aaron Blake." I was stunned. Mr. Connors had never liked me. He often complained about guests parking near his driveway. But Aaron Blake? I had always been polite with him at the pharmacy. We visited him the next day, and his face reddened when I asked about his statement. "Mrs. Hart, I was misled," he confessed. "Your daughter-in-law told me it was an insurance form. I said you only bought vitamins and aspirin. Somehow, it was twisted into proof you neglected your medication." He promised to write a correction immediately. Mr. Connors was less reasonable. "You installed cameras like you live in a war zone," he scoffed. "You yell at your family in the street." He refused to see that what he called yelling was me defending my own home. That night, Patrick and I reviewed the plan. We would secure an independent psychiatric evaluation. We would collect statements from friends and neighbors who had seen my clarity and independence. I went to bed anxious but resolved. I could grieve the son I thought I had, yet still protect the woman I was becoming. The courthouse was solemn and cold the morning of the hearing. I wore my best black suit, pressed the night before, and carried myself with all the dignity I could summon. Judge Alvarez presided, a man known for fairness in elder rights cases. Still, my heart pounded as I sat beside Patrick at the defense table. Across from us, Tyler in a new suit avoided my eyes while Madison's gaze was sharp and unflinching. To them, this was business. To me, it was survival. Their attorney began. "Your Honor, Mrs. Hart has shown clear decline. She cut off all financial support without reason, installed unnecessary cameras, and isolated herself under the influence of manipulative neighbors." His voice was steady, polished, practiced. Madison was called first. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "Evelyn has always been like a second mother to me, but lately she has grown hostile, paranoid, and confused. We just want to help her." Patrick stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Cole, when was the last time you called Evelyn without asking for money?" Silence. Is it true you told her she was not a special person at your wedding? Madison flushed. Those words were taken out of context, Patrick pressed. What context makes that acceptable? She had no answer. Next came Tyler. My mom has always been generous, but she is irrational now. She is being manipulated. Patrick leaned forward. Mr. Hart, have you received over $33,000 from your mother in the last 3 years? Tyler fumbled. Maybe, I do not know the exact amount. And how many times have you visited her without needing money? Silence again. Mr. Connors testified about my cameras and supposed shouting. Under questioning, he admitted he never asked why I installed them. Aaron Blake, the pharmacist, then took the stand for our side. He explained how Madison had misled him and confirmed I had no prescriptions, only vitamins. Dr. Moore, the independent evaluator, presented her findings. My cognitive results were above average for my age. She testified clearly that I was fully competent. Mr. Donnelly, the bank manager, described how I made thoughtful decisions to cancel transfers and protect accounts. Nora Whitfield and other friends shared stories of my independence and social life. Finally, I stood. My voice was steady. I told the court about the unused pink dress in my closet, the envelope with $1,000 still sealed, the humiliation of being excluded while financing the celebration. What I gave was never love returned, I said. It was a commercial exchange disguised as family. Patrick closed. This is not incompetence, Your Honor. This is a woman reclaiming dignity. After hours of deliberation, Judge Alvarez returned. The petition for guardianship is denied. Mrs. Hart is fully competent. The evidence shows this case was motivated by financial interest, not concern. Relief washed over me. I had defended not just my finances but my freedom. When the gavel struck, it felt like a chain breaking. Tyler and Madison gathered their papers and stormed out, whispering angrily to their lawyer. I caught one last look from my son, but whatever regret flickered there was already too late. Our family bond had been buried under greed. In the weeks that followed, I made choices for myself. I sold my house, moved into a smaller apartment downtown, and with the proceeds I did 2 things. Half went to organizations that protect seniors from financial abuse. The other half I kept to finally live. I booked trips, joined a painting class, and filled my calendar with friends who cared about me, not my bank account. Neighbors told me Tyler and Madison downsized to a smaller apartment. Madison had to find work for the first time in years. Perhaps they will learn the value of honest effort, though I no longer wait for that day. Here is what I want you to remember. Love is never proven by money. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. Document everything. Protect yourself with professionals. And above all, never forget that you are worthy of respect without paying for it. If my story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs courage to set boundaries. Leave me a comment with where you are listening from and how you protect your own dignity. And if you believe stories like this matter, please like and subscribe. Together we remind each other that freedom has no price.